Hello and welcome to Midday Report on TVP World. I'm Marie Cato. Poland has begun evacuating its citizens from Israel. The operation will use two routes, one going through Egypt's Sharm el-Sheikh and the other through Jordan's capital, Amman.
Based on a number of polls in the area we have registered in our systems, we decided to use two aircraft. One, which I told you about yesterday, will fly Poles out via Jordan. And the other, which we managed to charter, most likely will travel to Sharm el-Sheikh. The latter convoy will be setting off imminently. The aircraft from Sharm el-Sheikh will fly out first, followed by the plane from Amman, most likely on Thursday morning. We want to use military aircraft for the operation because there are not as many people interested in leaving as we thought there would be. And our original plan, which assumed renting two large aircraft, will most likely not be needed. So one large aircraft and one smaller plane will be used to fly out all the Poles interested in leaving the region.
The first Central European evacuees have arrived from Israel after being repatriated following the escalation of hostilities between Israel and Iran.
A plane carrying 73 evacuees arrived in the Slovakian capital Bratislava on Tuesday. Aside from Slovakians, the flight also carried Poles, Czechs, Slovenians and Austrians, as well as individuals from Spain, Estonia and Malaysia. Most evacuees say they did hear the missile and drone attacks taking place while in Israel.
Tonight we saw some different sirens. I could hear some. I could hear the air defense going off. Otherwise, the ground things held off.
Because the airspace above Israel is closed, the European nationals were brought to neighboring Jordan before boarding their flight. The evacuation came as Israeli forces stepped up their bombardment of Iranian cities, while Iran retaliated with strikes of its own.
And as U.S. President Donald Trump urged Iranians to evacuate Tehran, the Israel-Iran conflict entered its fifth day on Tuesday. Monday on social blocking the road leading out from the Iranian capital. Residents of Tehran are apparently leaving the city following the fifth day of Israeli attacks. According to Israeli sources, Iranian wartime chief of staff was killed in recent strikes, alongside 3 people in Iran's central city of Kashan. Both countries also exchanged blows overnight, with air raid sirens ringing across Israel and missile smoke trails seen above Tel Aviv, Jerusalem and Haifa. So far, no casualties of the Iranian strikes have been reported. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei that he could end up like Saddam Hussein. The anti-Israeli president of Iraq was overthrown by a US-led coalition in 2003, then captured, tried for war crimes, and finally executed.
I warned the Iranian dictator against continuing to commit war crimes and firing missiles at Israeli citizens. He should remember what happened to the dictator in the country neighboring Iran, who took this path against the State of Israel. We will continue today as well to operate against regime targets and military targets in Tehran, as we did against the Propaganda and Incitement Broadcasting Authority.
We had a good G7, said Donald Trump right after he left the summit in Canada prematurely. The US president praised the deals made with the European Union and the UK and explained that he wanted to return to Washington to be on the scene as the Israeli-Iranian conflict unfolds.
What can you do in Washington that you couldn't do in Canada? Just be a little bit, I think, more well-versed. Not having to use telephones so much because I don't believe in telephones. There's people like you listen to them, you know. So being on the scene is much better. And we did everything I had to do on the G7. We had a good G7. We signed the deal with the European Union, phase 1 of a deal, but we signed the deal with the UK. And the UK is really great. We were very far down the line with a lot of deals. I mean, look, we're actually finished with every deal if you really think about it, because all I have to do is say, this is what you're going to pay. But it's nice to be nice.
And now an update on the tragic attack against Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Earlier in the morning, the city experienced another wave of Russian attacks, which Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy later referred to as one of the most terrible strikes on Kyiv. 15 people have been killed and at least 110 have been wounded in attacks in several cities in Ukraine. Our special correspondent Oz Chatterjee has this latest report.
I'm in the Solomyansky district, where behind me search and rescue operations are underway after a full apartment block was leveled in Russia's attacks on the Ukrainian capital. President Zelenskyy says 8 different districts of the Ukrainian capital were targeted in these attacks. The Ukrainian government say Russia launched 440 drones and 32 missiles on the territory of Ukraine, targeting not just the Ukrainian capital, but also Odessa in the south of the country. Now, President Zelenskyy has called this one of the most horrifying attacks on Kyiv since the war began in a statement released in the morning. Now, let's take a quick listen to what President Zelenskyy had to say about those attacks.
Such attacks are pure terrorism, and the whole world, the United States and Europe, must finally respond as a civilized society responds to terrorists. Putin does this solely because he can afford to continue the war. He wants the war to go on. It is wrong when the powerful of this world turn a blind eye to it. We are in contact with all partners at every possible level to ensure an appropriate response. It is the terrorists who must feel the pain, not innocent, peaceful people.
Now, search and rescue operations are still underway, so that number of dead and injured may continue to rise throughout the day. However, a 62-year-old U.S. citizen was among those killed here in the Solomyansky district of Kyiv. And there will be questions as to whether Washington will respond to that at all, particularly with regards to air defense. 20,000 air defense missiles were earmarked to be sent to Kyiv. They have instead been sent to Israel for their conflict against Iran. The Ukrainians will be very concerned about the situation they have with air defense, particularly as Russia is routinely launching more than 400 drones on a repeat basis onto Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian air defense engaged heavily over the skies of Kyiv last night, many hours into the early hours of the morning, and Ukraine will be getting concerned about its supply of air defense missiles, the air defense missiles that are preventing further attacks like this from happening across the country. It's Oz Chatterjee reporting from Kyiv for TVP World.
Russia attacked the Ukrainian capital with cluster munitions, what the Kyiv mayor Vitaly Klitschko said in a video shared on his Telegram channel on Tuesday. Klitschko went on to add that Russians are doing everything to kill as many people as possible, even resorting to using cluster munitions on civilian targets.
One of the missiles hit an apartment block. Thank God no one died. But there is an interesting find. The rescuers collected these balls. The missile was packed with cluster munitions to wound as many people as possible. There is no other way to call it than genocide. The Russians are doing everything to kill as many people as possible. They are using such munitions to attack a peaceful city.
We shouldn't let Russia earn more, said EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy Kaja Kallas during a press conference on Tuesday in response to the question about the oil price cap.
I think that we should move forward with the oil price cap, especially because of the tensions also in the Middle East. The whole idea of the oil price cap is actually to lower the prices. I think we shouldn't end up in a situation where the situation in the Middle East will increase the oil prices and actually also make Russia to earn more, because that means that they are able to fund their war machine. Again, in a bigger scale.
At the upcoming NATO summit in The Hague, Poland will call for a hike in defence spending to 5% of GDP across the alliance. Poland's defence minister made the announcement at the handover ceremony for the first Apache helicopters purchased for the Polish armed forces.
Because of our location in Europe and the world, we're much more aware of the threats than other countries. Because we know the Russian Federation. We know the Soviet Union. We have experienced aggression, we have experienced oppression, and we have experienced barbarity. We know how to counteract it. We're united in an alliance, we have a strong society, and the best equipped army. These are the three pillars of a safe Poland. These are the three pillars of peace for Europe and the world. We will implement them with all determination, together with our allies from the European Union and NATO, led by the United States. The NATO summit is coming up next week in The Hague. We will support efforts to increase the spending of NATO countries to 5%. This is our program, and it's the program of the United States. This is a program that gives us the chance to achieve the highest level of security. It's what our citizens deserve.
Can Europe's farms survive without a new generation to run them? That was the key question at the informal summit of EU agriculture ministers in Warsaw, where leaders have just wrapped up talks on how to make farming more appealing to young people. TVP World reporter Alexandra Bulenda is there. Good afternoon. Have the discussions brought forward any meaningful answers?
Well, in fact, Mary, now investing in the youngest generation of farmers was a strong focus of today's meeting. And in fact, delegates wrapped up with a united call for more support now, less red tape, and real strategies to make farming attractive again. Now, at the heart of the discussion, obviously, was a generational renewal, as we've been discussing it throughout the day. And Poland's agriculture minister, Sheikh, said that the current reforms proposed by Brussels are a long-awaited response to what farmers have been longing for months now, really. And also now taking the floor, EU Commissioner for Agriculture Christoph Hansen revealed the scale of financial support already on the table.
The CAP strategic plans allocate 8.5 billion to support for young farmers, including income and investment aid. And by 2027, 377,000 young farmers should become heads of farm via this help.
The meeting ended with a consensus that both national and EU-level action is definitely needed, whether it is access to credit or land, or adapting to climate change, or simply, ensuring that farming is viable now in long term. Now, with these climate needs, pressures, trade tensions that EU is currently facing, ministers made it most definitely clear that European agriculture must be modern, supported, but above all, generationally renewed. Back to you.
Alexandra Bulenda reporting for us live from Warsaw. Many thanks. Serbian protesters continue to demand snap elections, and not only on the national level. In Novi Sad, the place where the unrest originated after a newly renovated train station canopy collapsed last November, killing 15, a group of protesters demanded local elections. The protesters blockaded an intersection near the local council building on Monday night to demand elections that they claim are overdue. Police barred access to the building itself. In the capital, Belgrade, a group protested in front of the main government building for the 8th consecutive day. Students and university staff set up tents and barriers in the area, saying that they will stay until their demand for new elections are met. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has named the new transition leadership of his Socialist Party amid corruption scandals and mounting calls for Sanchez to resign. The Prime Minister has begun a series of meetings with his coalition partners to avert the crisis and avoid government collapse.
The new leadership of the Spanish Socialist Party will remain in place until the party congress on July 5th. The transition team was named after one of the Prime Minister's closest allies was accused of accepting bribes for public contracts. Last week, PM Pedro Sanchez resisted calls for a snap election and promised an external audit to set the record straight. Now, according to reports, the Prime Minister is facing growing opposition within his own party.
That concludes today's Midday Report. Many thanks for joining us, and stay tuned for more on TVP World. Goodbye.